We start with these two quotes. Have you heard these names? Two names of the two scientists. If you have not heard, you are already failing. You may leave. If you have not heard, you may leave. যারা এখনো শোনেনি চলে যেতে পারে। স্টার্লিং, স্মিথ না শুনলেও স্টার্লিং, CVS, who is this? Ernest Starling, Ernest Henry Starling and Homer W. Smith, somewhat senior, a little junior. One is English, another is American. These two quotes, these are just to start with, introduction. So as if the kidney, we know it as an excretory organ from childhood or our junior school life. We know it as an excretory organ, but actually it has non-excretory functions. It is actually simply not an excretory organ. It is not as simple as that. It is an excretory organ, but it has even in the syllabus it is written non-excretory functions of kidney, but actually whatever Starling has said, this person Ernest Starling has said, as if it has some intelligence of its own, because what are the other functions of the kidney? Not other. I would not comment that it is solely an excretory organ and those are the other functions. So non-excretory functions or the principal functions. So homeostatic functions. What does the kidney excrete? What are the substances? Obviously the waste products of the body. So they should be urea, uric acid, creatinine. Creatinine comes from muscle creatine. Uric acid comes from purines. Purine from proteins from purines. So I think you are acknowledged. You acknowledge these terms also from your biochemistry knowledge up till now. So urea, uric acid, creatinine, metabolites of hormones, toxins, drugs, whatever. All these are substances excreted by the kidney. And what else? What are the others? Other functions? Homeostatic functions. Homeostasis, I think first class of physiology. Homeostasis is maintaining the internal environment, internal milieu, it is called homeostasis. So control of body fluid. So water and electrolyte balance, obviously. What are the electrolytes? Major electrolytes you know of: sodium, potassium, chloride, okay, bicarbonate. So water and electrolyte balance. So this comes at par with the excretory function of the kidney. Then control of body fluid, water and electrolyte balance, fluid homeostasis, and acid base balance. And these are to be learnt in detail, in somewhat detail. Acid base balance, 10 marks question, separate topic. So as we go through renal physiology, all these classes, I think maybe 7 or 8 classes may be required. We will try in less than that because this time we have less time. So we will cover the most important areas first, but that is also difficult without explaining. So physiology is more of concepts. Obviously some things there are to memorize, but physiology is more of concepts. So control of water and electrolyte balance, homeostatic mechanisms, body fluid balance, and acid base balance. Okay, and another is kidney secretes some endocrine functions. What are the endocrine functions of the kidney? Fresh minds, 9am, endocrine functions, hormones from the kidney. नाम तो बोलते होगे. One is, बोलो, roll 147. Erythropoietin and renin and CET, and one vitamin which is a hormone, vitamin D3. So CET. So there are only few people. So there are only few people who should pass. And what happens is that in the classes although lecture class is not for that much for interaction, when we are interacting, only those people are answering and others are remaining quiet. So kidney hormones you can't name. So these covers the excretory and non-excretory functions of the kidney. Renin, erythropoietin, calcitriol. Vitamin D3 is calcitriol. So it is the processing both in the liver and in the kidney. I think calcium and vitamin D3 metabolism, calcium and metabolism and vitamin D3, all these have been discussed once with parathyroid hormone. So all of you should name it. And what did Smith say? Mental integrity, sine qua non. Sine qua non means absolutely indispensable. So without the kidney functioning, even so many problems will be there. So if ammonia cannot be excreted, okay, if the toxic products cannot be excreted, so it will affect the brain also. Our mental integrity will be disrupted. So that is what this is. And but these quotes are just for highlighting that kidney is not simply an excretory organ. That these persons they highlighted that. Whatever we have read from childhood, that is correct. It is an excretory organ, but it is not simply just an excretory organ. So the first in your syllabus, whatever is described in your syllabus by the NMC now, so they are writing first sub-competency in renal physiology is describe the functional anatomy of the kidney and non-excretory functions. So I just mentioned the non-excretory functions. If a question comes like this, non-excretory functions, then you have to describe also in someone, say 5 marks, 3 marks, 4 marks, 5 marks. So you just can't write the points. You won't just write the points. Sorry. You won't just write the points. You will describe the functions also. So how will we do that? We will do that in our subsequent classes. We will describe this, how it is being. So how the kidney is doing things, we will be describing this. Not much on hormones, but at least acid-base balance, how it is maintaining homeostasis, that is what is in some subsequent competencies. So urine formation, urine micturition, the whole renal physiology covers what? This functional anatomy, then urine formation, micturition, urine formation, about the bladder, urethra, all these anatomical tracts and all, and also this homeostasis. Acid-base balance for your purpose, from the exam point of view, it comes as a, that is semi-long, short answer type or whatever they tell now. 15 marks is long answer, so 10 marks. I think in your, it is going to change also. It may change during your exam, the previous pattern. It may change. There are 2 50 marks question now. I was hearing that it would come down to 1 15 mark question, and other 15 marks will be adjusted in the other sections. 2 MCQs will, instead of 10, 12 MCQs like this. So that is from the exam point of view. But 10 mark question, acid-base balance, earlier it was 7 mark question. So this is a very important question. So as we will discuss in the subsequent classes, if you are asked to write the non-excretory functions of the kidney, you have to describe in, at least in brief, you have to write. So we come to the anatomy of the kidney, and this is a bit complex. Anatomy itself without diagrams and all, but kidney anatomy is specialized. What is special in the anatomy of the kidney? Not special, it is unique. Or the vascularity, blood vessels, I think you know a bit, at least some part of this urine formation, micturition, how are the blood vessels arranged in the kidney, you should know from your knowledge of your school life a bit, but we will discuss it again. So like the kidney and the adrenal, these 2 glands we describe as outer and inner parts as cortex and medulla. Adrenal gland is already done. Here also we describe outer part of the kidney. If we take a hemisection, both are hemisections, both pictures these are, and I have already taken a few classes earlier. So I have already told, don't take pictures. These pictures are either from standard textbooks or from the internet. Pictures on the internet, you can search it out yourselves, and you can refer to standard textbooks, obviously, if you like, although you have short time, but don't take pictures, that is not allowed, because I don't know you know or not, that even taking Xerox, this copying from textbooks, taking Xerox is a brand name actually. This photocopying from textbooks is also illegal. People do it, but this is illegal. So you can't take pictures. So you will get similar pictures in your books. You can refer to standard textbooks. You can refer to the pictures on the internet. Some are from the internet, some are from the textbooks. So in the class, don't use the mobile. So this is the cortex and the inner part is the medulla. So whatever is labeled like this you can't see. So whole of this outer part is the cortex where the red dot is now, and inner part, see conical structures are arising, conical structures, the base of the conical structures. So I don't think I'll have to explain what is apex, what is base. So the base of the conical structures there, that is the corticomedullary junction. And what are these conical structures called? They are called renal pyramids. They are called renal pyramids, which has a base towards at the corticomedullary junction. So at the junction of inner and outer parts, and the tip inside. That means far inside the medulla, where it forms a protuberance or a projection, that is called a papilla. So each pyramid is ending in renal papilla, and where are the pyramids draining? There are certain, say, fenestrations. So obviously we will discuss urine formation. So what is the functional unit of kidney? It is the nephron. All those nephrons are located there, and through the papilla they are draining into a structure, nephron, each pyramid draining into a space called the minor calyx, and then some minor calyces. How many these conical structures, how many are there in each kidney? It is, according to standard textbooks, what I have found, it is 8 to 18. 8 to 18. Okay. And they are draining into the minor calyx, then 2 or 3 minor calyces, some minor calyces into one major calyx. There are a few of them, and which again draining the urine into, this is the renal pelvis, that is the upper broad expanded part of the ureter. So the ureter drains urine from the kidney, the upper broad end of the ureter. And we also describe a term, a renal sinus. So for describing the renal sinus, first we speak of the hilum. Hilum is the part from where the ureter is emerging from the kidney, and also what else except the hilum? The renal vessels, renal artery and the renal vein. Renal artery is a direct branch of, this is from anatomy, I think, am I wrong? Direct lateral branch of lateral branch of abdominal aorta. So renal artery is entering, renal vein is leaving, ureter is leaving, that is through the hilum or the hilus. This expanded portion is the pelvis, and the space if we consider a space which houses this renal pelvis, some major calyces and all these structures, some fats are lodged there, adipose tissue, everything is there, that space is the renal sinus. Is it labeled here? No, it is not labeled. So this space, if you consider this, including the minor calyces and all, surrounded by the renal parenchyma, obviously, except where the ureter and all these are leaving through the hilus, except that region, it is surrounded by this renal sinus, it is surrounded by the renal parenchyma, that is the functional tissue. So minor calyces, major calyces, pelvis, all these are parts of the renal sinus. Also there is some adipose tissue, it is not labeled here in this. And we see the capsule. So there will be an outer capsule. Before describing the cortex or mentioning the cortex, we should have mentioned the outer capsule. Okay, so this is the gross structure. What are the structures in the kidney? How are they divided? And when okay, we'll come to them later. Nephron, we are coming to it later. So this is the gross structures of the kidney. And how much does the kidney weigh? Each kidney, it is like 115 to 170 grams in males. In females, it is somewhat lower. So we take it as, for taking just a what we call round figure, this is, which is considered as more or less 150 grams, and 2 kidneys together 300 grams. These are the weights of the 2 kidneys. What is the weight of the heart? It's also 300 gram, and the 2 kidneys together are 300 grams. Each is 115 to 170. Again, according to standard textbooks. In females it is somewhat lower, but we take it as 150 grams. So 2 kidneys together is 300 gram. What is the uniqueness of the kidney? It is a huge blood flow through the kidney. That is 1200, 1.2 to 1.3 liter per minute. So how do we express vascularity, blood flow? How do we express in grams, milliliter per gram of tissue per minute? So if it is 1200 milliliter, 1300 milliliter per minute, per gram of tissue is, you have to divide by 300 through the kidney. So there is no organ with such enormous amount of blood flow per 100 gram of tissue per minute. You have to divide 1200 by the 300 grams. Precisely it's 1260, that is 1200 to 1. It will be, obviously it will be a range. It cannot be a constant. It will be a range like all other things in physiology. So nephron is the functional unit of kidney, and we will come to the nephron, the parts of the nephron, the collecting duct, the duct of Bellini. These things will describe with the nephron. So this is the parts of the kidney and the structure. So another 2 terms we just recognize, the renal lobe and the renal lobule. What is the renal lobe? It is more or less the one pyramid, can be taken as one lobe, but along with its outer cortex and inner, the minor calyces, it is draining to minor calyx, it is draining to, that is taken as a renal lobe, and renal lobule is like one sub part of it. One nephron, all the nephrons. So nephrons will drain into the collecting ducts. We are coming to the nephrons. So nephrons, there will be the glomerulus, the Byman's capsule, the tubules, and the collecting ducts. Collecting ducts are not parts of nephrons. So one collecting duct may drain several nephrons. So one collecting duct, this one collecting duct draining several nephrons, this part, whatever is there, not the renal pyramid, part of the renal pyramid, see. So they are called the medullary rays, cortex, medulla, as if some rays are arising, separate rays are arising. So this P is labeled, this is the pyramid, but subparts of the pyramid, one few nephrons, one collecting duct, that will constitute this structure. This part will be a renal lobule. So renal lobule is somewhat a small subpart or subsection of the renal lobe. So we have to be acquainted with these terms, because sometimes we may refer to the renal lobe and the renal lobule. Then you should not. So sometimes, so always go by standard textbooks. If you just search it out on the internet, whatever search engine, so sometimes you will get renal lobe and renal lobule are same things, but no, renal lobe is different. A pyramid along with its overlying cortex, and the pyramid is draining into the minor calyx. So all that constitutes a renal lobe, but subsection is renal lobule, where few nephrons will be there. So you have to see pictures by yourself. Probably if you can draw yourself, copying from the book, if you can draw and understand it, it will be better. But we will come across these terms frequently while discussing this renal physiology all through all these classes. So we will have to understand. So lobe, lobule, and earlier was hilum, renal sinus. At least write these terms down so that you can read it. Renal sinus, renal pelvis. You have to, whenever because in the subsequent classes we won't have time to describe like this, renal pelvis, renal sinus, not like this. Again, we cannot discuss what is the renal sinus. So you have to, for the next classes, you have to come prepared after reading this topic. So just write down these terms. Cortex, medulla is okay. What is pyramid? What is renal pyramid? What is renal sinus? What is renal pelvis? What is renal lobe? What is renal lobule? These terms, whenever we come across, you have to just make a imagine in your head that we are speaking of this part. Okay. So we won't have time to describe over and over again. So this is somewhat hazy. Will come. These will start with the vascularity. So what are the renal artery? It will now renal artery, and it will now branch. So what are the before that? Okay, let me just come and you should first nephron, broad parts. Nephron. What are the broad parts of the nephron? Otherwise, we just be the vascularity will be a bit difficult. What is the parts of the nephron? Just broadly. We'll come to the subsections also. Cell types and all. I don't know. I should complete it today, but I don't know whether it will be possible. But broad parts, glomerulus with the Bowman's capsule and glomerulus filtration, where the filtration is occurring at the glomerular capillaries, Bowman's capsule and the tubules. So tubules are proximal tubule, loop of Henle distal tubule, and it will be draining into the collecting ducts. This is gross. So what happens? What is the structure? Glomerular capillaries. Glomerular capillaries. So where from will be the glomerular capillaries formed? From the arterioles are smaller arteries. So afferent arteriole. So the arrangement is afferent arteriole, then glomerular capillaries. We are short of time, writing everything will not be possible. You just look at the pictures and then go and look at the pictures, whatever textbooks you are reading. Afferent, this is the, so everything I can't write. So this is the afferent arteriole will enter the glomerulus and efferent arteriole will leave the glomerulus. Now don't confuse it. What is leaving through the hilum of the kidney? Renal artery and renal vein. Simple. Artery is draining an organ, vein is again draining an organ, venous blood. It is not to be confused with that. Glomerulus, consider the glomerulus of the nephron, afferent arteriole, and it will form glomerular capillaries. This is a low pressure, low resistance, low pressure, and arterioles is high resistance areas. So that's why it is important. Cardiovascular system, before this cardiovascular system is done, so you have to understand these terms. Arterioles obviously smaller than arteries, so it cannot be high pressure system for as high as a large artery, but compared to capillaries it will be obviously higher. So high pressure system, afferent arteriole, high pressure system, efferent arteriole, but in between are glomerular capillaries. So now where from this afferent arteriole arises? From the renal artery, they are branching. Now it will come from the renal artery, branches are interlobar arteries. So this is very, very hazy, but where I have put the red dot, it is written interlobar artery, this red dot, and above that it is interlobar vein running. Veins will run, corresponding veins will run along with the arteries. Now I am repeating that anatomy, you have to again see the pictures and at least once or twice before going into the functional anatomy. Functional anatomy is very important to understand the physiology of the kidney. So functional anatomy is very important in this part, also in other sections also, as well as in respiratory physiology and all. But interlobar artery is a branching from the renal artery itself. Now interlobar means, inter means between two, interlobar means between two lobes. So see this conical structure, this is the renal, conical structure is called renal pyramid. Now you will need these terms again and again. So renal pyramid, and along with its outer cortex and inner minor calyx where it is draining, it is the renal lobe. So between two lobes are the interlobar arteries, and this renal pyramid has a base. So this is the corticomedullary junction. See, or this is labeled, although it is hazy, I think you can follow. Cortex, medulla. So at the corticomedullary junction, this is the base of the pyramid, renal pyramid. There the interlobar arteries is named as the, it is now continuing as the arcuate arteries. And arcuate arteries are branching into interlobular arteries. Now we just described what is lobe and lobule. The afferent arteriole is arising from interlobular artery. So these are areas of MCQs. You have to tackle those MCQs as well. I don't know whether it should be given in anatomy as an anatomy MCQ or physiology MCQ, but it can be given as both. And interlobular arteries are giving afferent artery is arising from interlobular. So it is very important. So don't go by searching on these search engines, renal lobe and renal lobule and same. I have got both results, both correct and incorrect results. If you search on the search engine renal lobe and lobule, one result may come renal lobe and lobule and same. So I should not be repeating, this is, time is running out, but I am again mentioning so that you don't get confused. On the first day, if you don't correct this, so read standard textbooks or your textbooks, and if it is wrong somewhere, correct yourself and don't go by search engines only, because some things are correct, some things will be wrong. So renal artery dividing into interlobar, between two lobes, interlobar continuing as the arcuate artery at the corticomedullary junction, where there is the base of the pyramid. So all these discussions, I say renal sinus, renal pelvis, renal pyramid, renal lobe, renal lobule. Keep these terms in mind. Next class when you arrive, if you forget these terms, again there will be problems. So keep these terms in mind. Now arcuate artery branching into interlobular now. So lobule is few nephrons going into a collecting duct, that part is lobule, as if some imaginary medullary rays are arising from the medulla. The previous picture, these green parts. So that is lobule. Now interlobular arteries, they will branch into afferent arteriole, whatever you can see here. Again, this is the gross structure, capsule, cortex. Here the renal sinus is labeled, containing the renal pelvis, renal vein, renal artery, adipose tissue. The renal sinus, actually you can't see the adipose tissue, that can be shown on the same diagram. It will become clumsy. It may be shown, but it should be a big diagram. Here we are actually concerned with the major blood vessels, but these things are labeled: capsule, major calyx, minor calyx, interlobar, entering from renal artery, interlobar, between the two lobes, interlobar. Then following as arcuate artery, here it will be following as the arcuate artery, here it is labeled. So which will be the interlobar artery? This one. Follow the red dot now, you can follow. Now this will continue as the arcuate artery, then interlobular. This red dot now interlobular, and they will branch into afferent arterioles, and there are numerous glomeruli, it will enter the numerous glomeruli. Okay, as the afferent arteriole form the glomerular capillaries and come out of the glomerulus as the efferent arteriole, not the kidney. It will come out from the each glomerulus as the efferent arteriole, not the kidney as a whole. What enters and leaves to the kidney is the renal artery and the renal vein, and what enters and leaves the glomerulus, on one end is the afferent arteriole, then another is the efferent arteriole. In between are the glomerular capillaries, and through the glomerular capillaries filtration is occurring. After filtration occurs, this blood is leaving through the efferent arteriole. Okay, so that is the arrangement. Now repeat after me, anyone. So what is the arrangement? First is the renal artery, then you can't look anywhere, you can look at that picture only. Renal artery, then what artery? Interlobar or lobular? Interlobar. Then continuing as arcuate branching into interlobular. From there afferent arterioles. Obviously from one there will be many. For each glomerulus one afferent arteriole, one efferent will be coming out, and in between are the glomerular capillaries. and there the filtration will occur. When and how and what structures are else there, we will discuss in the structure of the nephron and the glomerulus. So, but this is the blood this is the blood, and see, after the efferent arterioles come out, what will be the forming? Very dense capillary network, and those are called the peritubular capillaries. P-E-R-I, peri means surrounding. They will be surrounding the. So just if we see the correct, they will be peritubular capillaries will be surrounding the tubules of the nephron. So that is surrounding the tubules of the nephron. Tubule will come to the structures of the nephron. Gross is glomerulus, Bowman's capsule draining into the tubule, proximal tubule, loop of Hildy, distal tubule, and all. The capillaries surrounding the tubules of the nephron are called peri. Peri is referring to surrounding. Peritubular capillaries. Where from they are forming? From the efferent arteriole. Now, how is the arrangement of the peritubular capillaries? For understanding the arrangement of the peritubular capillaries of the two types of nephron, we say, two types of nephron in this regard, we say, two types are superficial and juxtamedullary. How do we describe this? Superficial and distal. Why are these names coming? Why are these names so? Superficial nephron means it is according to the position of what? The tubules or the glomerulus? Position of the glomerulus as well as tubules, but position of glomeruli of the superficial nephron as well as the tubules will be located in the cortex. That means these are very covering a short area. See, this is a nephron. So nephron parts. So parts of the nephron. What are these? Afferent arteriole entering, forming the glomerular capillaries, efferent arteriole leaving. Okay. Now these efferent arteriole will follow the red dot. Okay. Afferent arteriole entering, very clear. Though small, actually I have combined 2 or 3 pictures, so they have become small. You don't have to read. I'll read it for you. You don't have to read from here. Don't try to read the writings. The text you don't have to read. Just follow the diagram. Wherever I am putting the red dot, just follow that. So afferent arteriole entering, forming the glomerular capillaries, efferent arteriole leaving. These efferent arterioles will be forming the peritubular capillaries around the tubule. Now see, some nephrons are called superficial nephrons. Sometimes you may get the term as cortical nephrons. So what will happen? What happens? Arrangement is that the cortical nephrons, what is the arrangement? Glomerulus, Bowman's capsule, this structure. So this is also called the renal. Glomerulus and the Bowman's capsule also called together the renal corpuscle. C-O-R-P-U-S-C-L-E. Where have you come across the term corpuscle before? Red blood corpuscle, white blood corpuscle. There we told corpuscle means cell. But actually, if you take the literal English meaning, what is this? Small rounded body. Corpuscles means small rounded body. So glomerulus along with the Bowman's capsule, and there is something called the mesangium which we will describe. It is called the renal corpuscle. So this renal corpuscle, and then from the corpuscle arises the tubule. This renal corpuscle and renal tubule, all these structure will be within a short space. Maximum it will extend to the outer part of the medulla. These are the superficial nephrons. Superficial nephrons will contain these tubules and corpuscles within a small area. Maximum it may enter the superficial medulla. Okay. So here is the, so just follow the red dot. You don't have to read. Don't try to read anything. Follow the red dot. So this is the glomerular area. Okay. So first see, sorry, don't see the right side of the middle picture where I am keeping the red dot. Glomerulus. From the glomerulus will arise the tubule, glomerulus renal corpuscle tubule, and see it is ending in the, you can follow this line, red dot, this arch type. This is the corticomedullary junction. This is the outer part of the medulla, and this is the inner part of the medulla, right? Again, go through the pictures in your books, you can understand better. Cortex, outer part of medulla, inner part of medulla. This whole, if you see the right side, in the same picture they have shown the superficial nephron and the juxtamedullary nephron. I am repeating, although we are short of time, I am just going on repeating so that you don't make mistakes in the subsequent classes. In the superficial nephron, everything will end within the outer part of the medulla. See this red dot? This is the end of the, as if you call it the tip, it should not be called the tip, loop. So loop of Henle, proximal tubule, loop of Henle, and the limbs, thin ascending limb, will come to this. So this loop of Henle is ending in the outer part of the medulla. And in case of juxtamedullary nephron on the left side, the red dot where it is now, it is the long loops of Henle. It will enter the inner part of the medulla, right? Have you understood it? Have you got it? So superficial nephrons, it will be a small area, glomerulus will be in the cortex, and position of the glomerulus within the cortex. Towards the, where is the position of the glomerulus? This red dot, towards the outer part, cortex, nijai to outer part, and the outer part of the cortex, the glomerulus, and the loop of Henle is ending within the outer part of the medulla. So this is the cortex, this is the outer part of medulla, this is the inner part of medulla. So everything is contained within the cortex and the outer part of medulla. So short loops of Henle, shorter loops of Henle. And juxtamedullary nephron, you may be asked to describe the differences between superficial nephron or cortical nephron and juxtamedullary nephron. Cortical nephron does not mean it is wholly within the cortex. It will be outer part of the medulla. So better it should be called superficial. But cortical nephron, sometimes you will consider it as, if you come across this term, you will consider it as the superficial nephron. So glomerulus is in the outer part of the cortex. Cortex is itself the outer part. So as outer as possible. Then it ends, the short loops of Henle end within the inner part of the, outer part of the medulla. And for the juxtamedullary nephrons, it has long loops of Henle. It will contain, it will follow into the inner medulla, long loops of Henle. And where are the glomeruli located? Why it is called juxtamedullary? This name comes from the position of glomerulus. Both glomerulus and tubule, but juxtamedullary. That means where the cortex and medulla, cortex is ending, medulla is starting, it is near the medulla. Or glomerula should be in the outer part of the cortex. Why? Again you will get confused. Why? 90% of the nephrons are superficial nephrons, only 10% are juxtamedullary. Now as 90% it is having a huge number, okay, huge number, 90% is huge compared to 10%. Out of 10 or 11 nephrons, 9 or 10 will be superficial and 1 will be juxtamedullary. So 90%, so for those 90% we know glomerulus is towards the outer part of the cortex and loops of Henle are short ending within the outer part of medulla. Do you get it, everybody? But for these juxtamedullary nephrons, there are long loops of Henle going into the inner medulla and the glomerulus will be located near the junction of cortex and medulla. This glomerulus, this red dot, these are juxtamedullary nephrons with long loops of Henle. Now if we come back to the vascularity, efferent arteriole will be forming peritubular capillaries in both juxtamedullary nephrons and superficial nephrons. In the superficial nephrons, These are very dense within a short area, small area. So efferent arteriole forming peritubular capillaries allowing many nephrons together congested in a short area, because the loops of Henle will end within the outer medulla itself, maximum. They may be shorter also. But for the juxtamedullary nephrons, these some straight vessels follow from the efferent arteriole, from some straight vessels follow these long loops of Henle. They are called the, what are they called? What term you have heard in this regard? In 15 seconds, what are they called? Straight vessels following the peritubular capillaries are straight vessels itself, they are the peritubular. Straight vessels following the long loops of Henle, vasa recta. So vessels which are straight. So all these are Latin terms. So vasa recta, straight vessels following the long loops of Henle of the juxtamedullary nephrons. Vasa recta is not a term associated with the superficial nephrons. It is a term associated with these long loops of Henle which are parts of juxtamedullary nephrons. So this much will do for now. Vascularity, this much will do for now, and veins will follow. Obviously, wherever there is an artery, there will be corresponding veins. So in the pictures you can see, at least this picture is clear along with the text also. So if there is interlobar artery, there will be interlobar vein. If there is vasa recta, there will be ascending and descending as well, because some will ascend and they have to again follow the loop of Henle. So there will be ascending part and descending part of the vasa recta. As we describe the parts of the nephron, it is going like that only, ascending and descending. So parts of the nephron I think you know, but nephron, glomerulus will drain into the tubule. First part of tubule is proximal tubule. So first part is convoluted. Convoluted means twisted and folded. And then it is proximal straight tubule. Then it is the thin ascending limb. Proximal tubule, then it is the thin descending limb, then is the thin ascending limb, then is the thick ascending limb, finally the distal tubule. After the distal tubule, nowadays the new coinage is initial collecting tubule. Connecting tubule, initial connecting tubule. So if you write the parts of the tubule, it is proximal convoluted. So it is not possible to write. Then proximal straight tubule. Then thin descending limb. This proximal straight tubule, thin descending limb, then thin ascending limb. So together it will form the PT. Thin descending limb is DTL. Thin ascending limb is ATL. If we use the abbreviations are different in different books, but we will use it here like this. So written this. Next, what will follow? Thick ascending limb. After thin ascending limb, write thick ascending limbs and in bracket write TAL. So these are just for, you can make it according to your own, different in different books. Thin ascending limb is ATL, thick is TAL. Write it as TL. Then distal convoluted tubule, most of it is convoluted tubule. Distal convoluted tubule. So you can follow distal convoluted tubule. For simplification, you may consider it a distal convoluted tubule directly going into collecting ducts. but there are two more parts described: distal convoluted tubule, then the initial collecting tubule. Sorry, after distal convoluted tubule, it is the connecting tubule, then the initial collecting tubule. You have written up to this. If you wish to write, there is no obligation. Then I'll write the other parts 1, 2, 3, 4. So we are well short of time. We have to continue it in the next day. We wrote up to the thick ascending limb. Then distal, so what will form the loop of Henle from your understanding? Proximal straight tubule, not the proximal convoluted part. So the loop is starting from here, the proximal straight tubule, then descending thin limb, then the loop proper, then descending ascending thin limb, then the thick ascending limb, and just the starting of the distal convoluted tubule. This will form the loop, and proximal convoluted tubule is just before the beginning of the loop, and distal convoluted tubule is just after, like that, just after the ending of the loop. Okay, distal convoluted tubule. And distal convoluted tubule, in this simplified picture, it is draining into the collecting duct. But before that, we described two more parts: initial collecting tubule, and in between this connecting. These are two more terms. So if you get these terms, don't get confused. So I was pretty anxious that we cannot complete this anatomy in the one class, and that is what happened, because if you don't understand those renal pyramid, renal lobe, renal lobule, it will be difficult to follow. If I complete it in 10 minutes, 5 minutes and go forward. So that's why I had to repeat again and again. So we'll have to continue in the next class. But at least this is the simplified nephron. This is the simple. In this picture, although it is very short, so there are, see this, just follow the red dot and the green line. So after the distal convoluted tubule, so this is going thin ascending limb, distal convoluted tubule. So this is the initial, connecting tubule and the initial collecting tubule. Initial collecting tubule will go to the collecting ducts. Remember, collecting ducts are not part of the nephron, as you see from this simplified picture. So few nephrons will go to the same collecting duct, and few collecting ducts will be from the duct of Bellini. It is after the Italian physiologist Lorenzo Bellini. Duct of Bellini will be formed by few collecting ducts together, will drain into the duct of Bellini, and few nephrons will be draining into the same collecting duct. And as we told, it is describing a renal lobe or lobule. Few nephrons into a single collecting duct, that is describing a renal lobe or lobule. Again, renal lobule, that is describing a renal lobule. Few. So collecting ducts are not parts of nephrons. One collecting duct will drain few nephrons, more nephrons. So these are the parts. Now just consider thin ascending limb, thin ascending, after the thin descending one, the loop proper, after there is the thin ascending limb, that is a very insignificant, you can't see it over here. See, you can, this green part where the red dot is now, I can't turn your head, because as I turn my head, my hand will move. So I am turning my head towards the screen. You can see this red dot, please say yes or no. You can follow the red dot loudly, yes or no. So if you follow the red dot, this green part is the thin ascending limb. This is not very prominent in these superficial nephrons. Thin ascending limb is very small part or even one book is writing there is no thin ascending limb in superficial nephron. So thin ascending limb is only there in the long loops of Henle, long nephrons, long tubules, the juxtamedullary nephron. Okay, but don't. So that is I have found it in only one book. So you may consider thin ascending limb is there in both types of nephrons, but in the superficial nephrons it is a very small part. So it is starting after the descending thin limb, one small part is thin ascending limb because the cell structure will differ. We will come to the cell structures next day. Cell structure will differ. The cells present in the different parts of the tubules, this will differ, and those functions of those cells are important. So again, glomerulus, Bowman's capsule, one specialized type of cell called the mesangial cells are present in the Bowman's capsule. We can just mention mesangial cells today. So mesangial cells we can mention today, just a little bit time left. So if you go through this, it will again be difficult because here they are labeling the mesangial cells. So these cells, these yellow cells, you follow the red dot, these are the mesangial cells and those are extragonular. So I have also brought, so this is the picture for mesangial cells. So mesangial cells, remember mesangium is that area, that specialized area which contains mesangial cells and mesangial matrix. Renal corpuscle includes what? Till now we know glomerulus and Bowman's capsule, and it will also consider the mesangium or the mesangial cells and matrix within the part of the renal corpuscle. Corpuscle is the small, corpuscles means small rounded body. So it will not include the tubule. It will not include the tubule. Okay. So corpuscle is small rounded body. It is not including the tubule. It is only considering the glomerulus and the Bowman's capsule, but along with the mesangium. What is the mesangium? It is a specialized structure composed of mesangial cells and mesangial matrix. Matrix is extracellular fluid containing, not containing that means structure, that is not living structure. So matrix, cells and matrix together the mesangium. So these mesangium is again maybe intraglomerular and extraglomerular. So glomerulus, any capillary, this is a glomerular capillary, there will be capillary. What is the inner part of the capillary called? But there is absorption in case of kidney. During hematology you have read, blood clotting, capillary, what we have mentioned. What is the inner lining called? Endothelium. So capillary endothelium between the capillary where the blood is flowing, if there are the cells are over there, it is called intraglomerular mesangial cells. And outside the capillaries, interspersed between different glomerular capillaries, if there are the mesangial cells, they are called extraglomerular mesangial cells. So mesangial cells may be intraglomerular and extraglomerular. And now intraglomerular, what are the role of the mesangial cells? Mainly is that the supporting cells, structural support, but also they may have phagocytic activity also. And sometimes extraglomerular mesangial cells can be made hyperactive in times of need. They can secrete these hormones also, renin and erythropoietin. We will come to the description of the juxtaglomerular apparatus next day. It is the JGA, juxtaglomerular cells of the JGA which secrete renin, but sometimes extraglomerular mesangial cells can also secrete renin and erythropoietin. Okay. So this is about the mesangial cells. It may be intraglomerular and extraglomerular. We will describe the macula densa along with the juxtaglomerular cells and the JGA next day, and also the cells in the different parts of the tubules. Today we knew about the parts of the tubules. Which part is very small in the superficial nephrons? Which part of the tubule? Thin ascending limb. Okay. So mesangial cells, they can release cytokines, pro-inflammatory actions. These contain collagen, this fibronectin, collagen, all these things, but main is it is supporting cells. Extraglomerular mesangial cells are also called lascis cells, LACIS, because of the lace-like, mesh-like structure. So up to this you read about the parts of the tubule, what are superficial nephrons. So just for revising, so you read about the Functions of kidney, okay, we'll discuss all over these, all these 8-9 classes, we'll discuss these functions. Excretory as well, non-excretory functions, urine formation and all. But functional anatomy you read about, again you write renal sinus, renal pelvis, renal lobe, renal lobule, renal pyramid. So in order, if you say renal pyramid, cortex, medulla, renal pyramid, renal sinus, renal pelvis, renal lobe, renal lobule, and then vascularity including afferent arteriole, the renal artery, then interlobar, then arcuate, then interlobular, then afferent arteriole, glomerular capillaries, efferent arteriole, peritubular capillaries. Peritubular capillaries dense and congested in cortex, in the superficial nephrons, and long lobes of Henle in the juxtamedullary nephrons. Vasa recta follow the long lobes of Henle. Parts of tubules, among which thin ascending limb is very small part in superficial nephrons.